Welcome, everybody, to Locked, Loaded, and Goated. This is the Monday Minutes. I'm your host, Brandon Andrews, coming to you live after a very disappointing weekend. So here's the deal. It's been 2 days since Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. It feels like the anchor was literally dropped on my head, and it hurts. But with that said, we're going to try to move on like we talked about this weekend. And the big thing that we're going to try to focus on is, how do we overcome the bomb that was dropped on us by Vandy? And just going to give a general feel. So right now, just looking over the message board and trying to get a feel for the program. It seems like players are a little upset. They're a little worried. Seems like they know they messed up. The players that did mess up, probably not as much as I would appreciate. Like, I think from a standpoint of, were they excited as I would want them to be excited? No, I don't get that sensation. Like, I felt like they were excited, but not to the level that I would expect
Excited
in terms. Oh, sorry. Like, I felt like they were. I hate. Anyway, with that said, like, the big thing is, we'll go over the topics for the day, and we're going to try to see what we can walk away with, essentially. So first things first, Alabama 2 days after the Vandy bomb. So the Vandy bomb went off. It exists. The defense is atrocious. And so the first thing we have to do is try to figure out how we are going to address the defense. So a lot of people have said that the scheme is not the problem. The issue lies in the execution. I'm not going to disagree with that. I'm not going to disagree with the fact that the execution on Saturday was poor. We missed tackles. Deontay Lawson, you missed tackles. Jahad Campbell, you missed tackles. Again, we had LT Overton missing tackles. Anyway, just drawing a blank. But essentially, we missed tackles all over the field this weekend, and we did not execute. We did not take up the blocks we needed to on the D-line. And the linebackers didn't fill in the gaps like they should have. And honestly, like, we deserve to get beat. We couldn't stop a short throw. We couldn't stop a very small play. And with that, obviously it hurt. So here's the deal. Defense, secondary, still a weakness. Defensive front that we thought was going to be a strength with the depth, it's not. We're going to get into that a little deeper in a second. But essentially what we're looking at is we're looking at a defense that's looking for an identity. So I heard a good idea. I had a great idea, actually, from another talk show. And one of the things they said was, hey, let's lay all our cards on the table and let's make every single player go out there and earn that spot. Let's start by just going out like it's your tryouts. We need to go back out on the field, and we need to go out there and pretend like no one has earned a spot, because after what I saw on Saturday, no one has earned a spot. No one needs to be sitting here assuming that they have a spot on this team. Now, we're not getting rid of players. We're not doing that. But what we are doing is we're going to make them earn the right to be on that field and to wear that Alabama jersey. And I think we should do that. I think that's a great idea. I'm not sitting here suggesting that we just go back to training camp and we're all sitting here going, okay, who's going to be our top 22? No. But when they put that jersey on, they damn sure better know that they're going to go out there and give an effort, or someone behind them is willing to. I can promise you that was the old mantra. That was the old mentality, and we've got to get back to that. So with that said, I'm hearing a lot of disappointment from the players, but I am hearing some accountability, which is a good thing. And that's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see a little bit of accountability from these guys, and I wanted to see a little bit of ownership in the program. What I haven't seen is a lot of ownership in terms of, yes, Deontay Lawson. Hey, what's up, Crimson? I think Deontay Lawson and Jahad Campbell have shown the ownership. They also played pretty bad this weekend, and I'm glad they stepped up and did that. What I haven't heard is the ownership from Womack yet. And I was at work today, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've seen every single thing that's come out. But I know Kalen DeBoer, it's his team, and I know he's taking a little bit of ownership. But I haven't seen the ownership in terms of Womack. I want to see what he has to say. I want to dive into that a little bit, and he may have today. So don't. This is, me not really doing a lot of research, just coming on here and telling you my take, my feel for the team at this moment in time. But I'd like to see what Kane Womack can do and what he can do to make an adjustment, because one of the things that I noticed and one of the things that we've talked about in the past and or previously is the inability to adjust. And I'm sure he's trying to make adjustments, but at the same time, I'm not quite sure that the adjustments that he's trying to make is like registering with the players. So either he has an inability to relate to these guys and these guys aren't receiving the message well to make the adjustments, or the adjustments just aren't working. So either he's inadequate at communication or he's inadequate as a coach. I would like to assume that the latter is not true. So I'm going to assume that we need to figure out a way to relate to these players and figure out a scheme that works for the talent that we have on the field. We had to do that with Jalen Milroe last year. When you're used to Mac Jones too, Bryce Young, all these players, you do what you have to do with the players to make them successful. And I think we're going to have to do that on defense. And so when I say that, I believe that we're going to have to do something a hair different than what we're doing. So I know the 4-2-5 is basically a nickel. I understand the 4-2-5 is a nickel. I understand Saban ran a nickel a lot of times, but I can guarantee you that when Saban was here, and Saban's not going to save us on this, if there was a team that was going to run the ball heavily, we would come out in a 3-4, a solid 3-4, and we would try to stop the run with our big uglies. We are not doing that. We're coming out in a nickel, and it seems like our backup defense, our adjustment is a 3-3-5. Neither one of those are going to stop the run successfully. Neither one of them. Unless you have someone back there like a Mark Barron, a Tyrone Matthew, one of these safeties that can play anywhere like Landon Collins and be around the line and make a tackle like a linebacker. You can't run these defenses and be successful in the SEC week in and week out. Vanderbilt ran all over us, guys. Vanderbilt ran all over us, and we've got to do something to stop it. So my suggestion this weekend was try to shift over to a 4-3 and run heavy situations. You can always migrate to the nickel on second and long, third and long. But again, what we need to do right now is figure out how to relate to these players. How do we relate and get this defensive scheme, in front of them and say, this isn't working. They're not executing. So whatever we need to do differently, let's do that. I don't know what the answer is. I'm not the coach. They're not going to listen to me anyway. Again, but we're going to give all we can. We're going to tell you everything we know. And what we know right now is it sucks. So with that said, we're going to move on. So here is what I was afraid of. What's about to happen right now is what I'm afraid of. What has happened? What came out today? What was big? And I'm going to tell you, it's big to me. This is what I was afraid of. Breaking news. This just today at 11:32 a.m. Jaheim Oatis is transferring. He's going to redshirt, and he's going to transfer out of the program. Jaheim Oatis was critical the last 2 years on that D-line. He was absolutely a warrior for us on the D-line his freshman year, and he actually played fairly well last year. So this guy is transferring due to lack of playing time. Here's my issue. He started 13 games his first 2 years. 13 games. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that, Crimson. 13 games. He was a top 40 recruit. He said the reason for leaving was playing time. So let's talk about playing time. He played 25 snaps the last 2 games. He's played a total of 63 snaps this season through 5 games. 63 snaps. When Kane Womack was asked about Jaheim Oatis and his production, he said he's just not producing the way that we would expect him to get on the field. And that's not a direct quote. That's a summation. But essentially, Oatis is leaving the program. I'm not quite sure why. I understand he said playing time, but there's more to this than that. There's more to this than playing time. Why is a guy who, I'm telling you right now, guys, this guy is the transfer for a defensive lineman. He is the transfer, and people are going to be coming after him with everything they got. So this guy is transferring now, probably to another SEC school. I mean, he is from, I think, Mississippi? He's from Mississippi. So he's going to stay in the South. He's going to go somewhere that's going to, utilize his talents. And this guy's transferring now. And it makes me sick to my stomach because this is what I was worried about. I was worried about the team breaking up after the big loss, the team coming out and breaking up, breaking down, and people getting upset, getting frustrated, and doing things that they normally wouldn't do because the team isn't coming together. We should be sitting here trying to pull these guys together. We need our players, our captains, And I know we're going to get into that in a second too. But you know, our team leaders, they need to be trying to get these guys to give everything they got for this team this season. Whatever they need to do in the off season, that's fine. But this guy's electing to redshirt and sit out. Man, we don't do that. We don't do that at Alabama. We don't do that. But he is. He is. And I'm going to tell you, he is going to be a very, very highly sought after player. He's going to play 1 year somewhere, be a stud. And I'm going to tell you, this guy's going to go to the NFL. So that's going to happen. Jaheim Oatis, it's disturbing to me, like I said. And we're going to get into that Crimson Prods too. So Crimson Prods on the chat said we should be worried about players and recruits flipping. Yeah, so this is him flipping, essentially. He has thrown the towel in, said, I'm going to redshirt, doesn't even want to try to get back on the field, doesn't even want to fight to get a spot back on the field. And like I just told you, I think everyone should be fighting for their spot right now. Everyone should be competing week in and week out because what we have on the field is not productive, not on defense. And so here we are. This guy has thrown the towel in, said he's redshirting the rest of the year. And bottom line is he's going to transfer. So something is wrong in that locker room. This feels like a Texas A&M moment to me. Not saying it's as bad as Texas A&M, but this is just not something we're used to. This is not something we've seen. So don't know where he's going. Don't know what he's going to do. But this guy was probably going to be an NFL player. I'd say second, third round. I'm saying, day 2 guy. Not a first round guy, but a day 2 guy. And bottom line is he's going to go play for someone else because whatever we did to upset him, it's significant enough to where he's just going to leave. And like I said, I don't think this is the guy that we wanted to lose right now, especially with the D-line death we had. Colin, you brought up things will get figured out. Yeah, 100%. Things will get figured out one way or another. Alabama will be Alabama. We will figure this out. Just how long is it going to take? I mean, this was a big loss for us. Like I said, my big issue is that the team stays together, because when you lose a big emotional game that you're not supposed to lose, the first thing that happens is what you saw on the field with Malachi Moore, which is what we're going to segue into next. What we saw on the field the other day with Malachi Moore, you get frustrated, things start happening that you normally wouldn't do. And I think this is what's going on with Jaheim Oatis. I think Jaheim Oatis is frustrated. He hasn't played. And not enough. Like I said earlier, 25 snaps the last 2 games, 63 snaps total this season. He doesn't think he's being used or utilized significantly enough, and he's leaving. That scares me. I think we're safe with recruits right now, because I think right now all the recruits we have lined up know that, hey, man, anybody can play on this team. I mean, the defense, anybody can play. I did hear that we're in the running for a 3-star tight end out of North Carolina. I think he's going to flip. From North Carolina. He's actually committed to North Carolina. He's going to flip sometime soon. Player comp is, good H-back style. Not quite as big as Robbie Oates, but H-back style. So, yeah, I mean, and Colin, like you said, Cunningham's a lock. Cunningham should be a lock. Look at what Ryan Williams is doing. Offense is playing, man. Offense is playing. But yeah, this guy's not saving. Saban's not going to save us now. What I think needs to happen, and I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but what I think needs to happen is I think Kalen DeBoer is doing exactly what we expected him to, and that is to have a great offense. He needs to find the right defense to complement him. Saban had to have a good offense to complement his defense. We know that. We saw what we could do. With, Lane Kiffin. We saw what we could do with Sarkisian. We saw what we could do with even McElwain, when he came in. Bottom line is I think what we need to do is we need to start trying to find that defense. It could be Kane Womack. But what he needs to do is we need to let down the expectations, and we need to expect him to play and have this team a lot more prepared than what they were this Saturday. So, hey, we're going to get into questions at the end. Give me just a second. I want to talk one more thing about Malachi Moore. So we're going to go into the Malachi Moore, and we're going to have some comments and concerns on this. I'd like to know what you guys think. But so Malachi Moore has issued an apology. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the apology. And if those of you don't know, he pushed Pavia's head in the ground. He kicked the ball through his mouthpiece, pretty much had a conniption fit on the field. Actions that were unbecoming of an Alabama, player. I can't remember anyone acting like that. Not really. So I would not condone those actions, and I don't condone those actions. So He issued an apology. And this is basically, this is his words from Twitter. So I want to apologize to my teammates, our coaches, the fans, our alumni, and my family for the way I acted on Saturday. I was completely out of line. I let my emotions of the game get the best of me, and I put myself before the team. As a two-time captain and fifth-year player, I understand the standard that we are expected to live up to at Alabama, and I failed to do so by acting in a selfish and unacceptable manner, and I came back this season to represent myself, this team, and this university because it means something to me. I'm blessed to be able to wear the A on my chest, and I know all that comes with the responsibilities of representing this program. I will do better to uphold the Alabama standard moving forward, and I will continue to work and improve while conducting myself in a first-class manner. Okay. So, very happy with the apology. It definitely seemed sincere. It definitely seemed sincere. It was a public apology. I would like for him to reach out and apologize to Vandy. I'm not expecting him to. I'm not, that's where I probably would have went. That's probably where I would have went first. I would have apologized to Vanderbilt because some of that stuff is uncalled for, and those guys didn't deserve that. They just beat us, man. They just beat us. They didn't deserve for you to treat them like that. So anyway, bottom line is the apology's good. Now, here's where the conversation comes in. We're going to ask for you guys, kind of give me a little feedback on what you guys think. Bottom line, I still think he needs a suspension. Kalen DeBoer came out today and said he will not suspend Malachi Moore, that his reaction to the situation, his apology, and the things he has done isn't going to warrant that. Now, there's probably going to be some discipline in the background, but Kalen DeBoer came out and said he will not suspend him. Here's my thought. Means nothing. You need to suspend the guy for at least a half. You need to suspend the guy for at least a half. And the reason why I'm going to state that you suspend him for a half is you let people know that this is not going to be acceptable on this team, on any team that Kalen DeBoer coaches, and anybody that wears that University of Alabama A is not going to act like that without some sort of consequence. And so I hope he does that. I don't think he will, though. I don't think he will. I think, honestly, that bottom line, he's come out and said he won't suspend him. I think it's going to be like one of those Nick Saban deals where we have some quiet punishment. He'll run some stairs, something like that. And that's a good question, Crimson. There's a lot of things that I'm sure they have to do. And for all we know, it could be community service, something that's actually worthwhile to make him think about his actions, think about what he did, and actually give back to the community. And if that's the case, good for him. That's what I want to see. I want to see some sort of discipline. I know we'll probably never know what that is, but hopefully he learns his lesson and he doesn't act like that. He should be an ambassador for the program. Malachi Moore, so someone asked what did he do? He basically threw his mouthpiece, kicked the ball after it was set by the referees, and pushed Pavia's head into the ground, all just because he was mad at the game situation. So he did not act like an Alabama player should, and thus we think one of the comments said, make him pull the uprights out of the river. Oh, yeah, that way Vandy can throw it back in. Yeah, but no, in all seriousness, I hope he has some community service. I hope he has something to make him think about what he's done, because as of right now, I was embarrassed. Guys, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to act like that. I was embarrassed for him to act like that. And I can't remember if anybody, do you remember, guys, a couple of years ago where Tennessee fan flipping off the crowd? That's that kind of stuff that we don't do here, man. We don't do that here. We don't do that here. We don't. Should we fire? The question come out, should we fire Kane Womack? I don't think they're going to fire him in the middle of the year. Who are you going to get to replace him? Who's going to call the defense? Part of me on Saturday, I was screaming from the top of my lungs to fire Kane Womack. But here's the deal, man. We got to execute. And we didn't. We didn't execute at all. Secondary didn't cover. I don't know what the deal is with the secondary, but they bite on everything. They get beat deep all the time. They can't play the man like they need to. The linebackers missed assignments in the passing game. They missed their gaps when they were trying to play the run, and they did not tackle worth a dang. Defensive line, one of the strengths. Again, we got Jaheim Otis leaving now because of the situation, because apparently Womack says he's not good enough to get on the field. And I'm paraphrasing, but basically he hasn't done enough to get on the field. Jaheim Otis is one of our best players the last 2 years on the defensive line. But bottom line, we got to do better. And the whole team, like I said at the start of the podcast, the whole team should have to try out for their spot. And I'm not saying, hey, we don't know where anybody's going to be ranked. We know where they are. We know where they kind of are. But they should all be aware that there's somebody behind them willing to take their spot. And all those people behind them should know that if you play hard enough, damn it, we'll give it to you. That's what I think. Yeah, and again, we talked about the adjustments early on, guys. I know in the chat you're talking about adjustments. We talked about the adjustments early on. And here's the thing about adjustments, and here's the thing I think. Either the guy can't coach, which I don't think is the case. I don't think he gets hired because he can't coach. But either he can't coach or he cannot make the adjustments relatable to the players on the field. Because one thing's happening. Either we're not making adjustments, which means he can't coach. You're right? Either he's not making adjustments because he doesn't know how and he can't coach. That's what that means. Or the adjustments he's trying to make the players they're just not getting it. So we've got to work on that. I'm gonna assume it's a communication issue. It's some sort of lack of communication. But yes, so that's where we're at. So Malachi, I don't think he's going to get suspended, but at the same time, I wish he would, just to send a message to the rest of the guys. And I'm not gonna lie with you, Crimson. At this point, we all have to question everything. So we have to question Kalen DeBoer. We have to question Kane Womack. We have to question the defensive players. We have to question everything. And I'm not saying any one of those people deserve to get fired or lose their job, but they should all be wary that now, where they used to be comfortable a week ago after beating Georgia, there's no time to be comfortable now. You got to play like your ass is on fire. Anyway. What's crazy, he was just showing his emotions for the game. You talking about the Malachi situation? So the Malachi situation, we just went over it. He apologized. We're happy with that. We're going to accept the apology. I think it was sincere, but I will say that his actions, that's not something a leader should do. That's not something an Alabama player should do. I do think he should be suspended. I said for a half. This weekend I said for a game. I said for a half. If you get suspended for targeting, right? You get suspended for a half for targeting, right? This guy literally kicked the ball after the ref set it down. He pushed Dylan Pavia's head into the ground when he tackled him, and he threw his mouthpiece and started yelling at everybody on the field. Just saying, a half suspension would go a long way. I did, however, say they're not going to suspend him. Kalen DeBoer's already came out and said that. But if he's required to do some sort of community service in the background that we may not ever know about, if he's required to do that, I will deem that as acceptable, and I will move on. I am okay with that. No, he's not the first to have done it. He's definitely not the first person to have done it, but is that the standard we want to set? I mean, this is Kalen DeBoer's first season. Do we think that would have happened under Saban? And he's not Saban. I agree with y'all. He's not Saban. But here's the deal. We got to set the tone. So, okay. Go on to the next point. We'll come back. We got Q&A at the end. We're going to have a bunch of conversations. I'm excited to talk to you guys because I like talking football. Let's go into the top 10. So top 10 review. First and foremost, being a Bama fan, I don't think we dropped enough. I do not think we dropped enough. So I think we should have been about 12th or 13th. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm not upset that we're still in the top 10, but I wish we would have dropped a little more to wake these guys up. The guys that we still have to play LSU, that's 13th. We still have to play Tennessee, that's 8th, right behind us. We have to potentially, if we win out, we have to go and play the SEC title game. We control our own destiny. Missouri's 21st. I mean, if we win all those games, if we win out like you guys say, bottom line, we're in the playoffs. If we go 11-1, we're in the playoffs. Nobody cares that we lost to Vanderbilt. If we go 11-1, we're in the playoffs. And I'm going to tell you guys this. Being in the playoffs, top 4, nobody gives a damn about that. Number 5. Position number 5. If you're ranked 5th, you have the easiest road. Hear me out. You have the easiest road. Like if Alabama goes 11-1, they have the easiest road to win a national title, and here's why. They're going to play the 12th seed. It's going to be some joke like BYU or SMU, And I'm not saying either of those teams are something to be laughed at because we just lost to Vanderbilt. So don't question that. But with that said, here's the deal. You 5 seed plays a 12th seed. You win that game, you go on to play the 4th seed, which is, the least best. No. The least best, sorry guys, the least best of the top 4. And then bottom line, you win out, you go. You win out, you go. But if the defense gets stops, yeah, that's true. That's true. So here's the deal. Going over the top 2. Texas is number 1, 52 first place votes. Good deal here. Ohio State number 2 with 9 first place votes. Oregon jumped all the way up there at 5-0 and they're 3. Penn State jumped up there as 4th. Georgia sitting still at 5th. I don't mind that. Miami with that huge comeback to win their game. I mean, that was a rough game, but they jumped 2 spots, and they're in 6th. Alabama 7th. Tennessee at 8th. Number 9 is Ole Miss. Number 10, Clemson. So with that said, I do agree that South Carolina is our next game. It's coming up this weekend. Huge game for us. Huge game. How we respond is going to determine a lot about who we are as a program. So how we respond to the loss is going to determine who we are as a program. So with that said, we're going to look and see how we do. We're going to try to do a little bit better. But here we go. So moving on. Last point before we go into Q&A. And just we got a question real quick, though. How do we feel about Oregon and Penn State jumping UGA? So I personally don't like it because I'm going to tell you right now, I think Georgia's a better team than Oregon and Penn State. We can all say whatever we want about Georgia. Georgia's still loaded, and Georgia is in the running. Georgia is in the running for one of the best teams in the country. So with that said, we got to make sure that they handle their business because that win's going to help us. It's going to make us look that much better. But with that said, Oregon, that's going to get settled this weekend. But Penn State jumping, I don't think so. They're not better than Georgia. But here's the deal. Just to give everybody a little bit, Vanderbilt had 26 votes to be in the top 25. Just makes me feel a little bit better. So good for Vandy. I know they haven't had. So last point before we move forward on Q&A. So I always like talking. I'm not an NFL guy. I do live in Tennessee, though, and so with that, I do kind of root for the Titans. Got grandparents who root for the Titans, things like that. So I root for the Titans. Not an NFL guy. I'm an Alabama guy. I like players in college, and I like to see how they transition and migrate to the pros. I was a huge Peyton Manning fan. I hate Tennessee, but you still have to respect what Peyton Manning did. So I like to follow players in the NFL. I'm more of a players guy, and I'm much less a team guy. Like I don't have a team that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm a Packer, I'm a cheesehead. But with that said, I try to follow the Titans. Here's the caveat. The Titans traded away their best player. And a lot of people, including people that'll be in this, a lot of people that are in this podcast with me, and you'll hear them shortly. Like they do a lot of the weekend wrap up and stuff with me. So a lot of the people told me that Derrick Henry was washed up. He was washed. He was no good. He lacked the burst to play in the game anymore. So me being a Titans fan, rooting for, the home team, I'm like, okay, let's go out and get this huge, passing attack that we all crave, because that's what the NFL is. That's what we all want. We want to win. We want to win now. So the Titans go out and they get Calvin Ridley, who I think is a hell of a receiver. They get some help on the O-line, and obviously, they've committed to Levis. The defense is playing lights out for the Titans, I think. The Titans are playing lights out. The problem is Levis absolutely sucks. Did any of us disagree? Did any of us have a question on whether Levis was going to be good after watching what we watched in college? Sure, he has the intangibles. Sure, he's 6'4", 6'5", and he's huge, and he looks like the walking Adonis that is a quarterback that the NFL seeks. But with that being said, he stunk. He only played 5 games over 200 yards in his entire SEC career, which was two years, 5 games over 200 yards passing. And 3 of those games, I think, were 210 or less. So this guy is not a good quarterback. This guy is not a solid quarterback whatsoever. But the Titans believed in him. Thus, we traded Henry to get weapons, just free up some room to try to build a team now. Now, with that said, I'm not going to talk about Levis anymore. You know how I feel. We went from Tannehill 1 to Tannehill 2. So Levis stinks. Bottom line, we're here to talk about Henry. So a lot of the comments that were made that Henry won't even be the best running back on their team. Lamar is. Comments were made that Lamar's too selfish. He's not going to give the ball up to Henry. I just want you guys to know, Henry had another great game. Another great game this weekend. Lamar had a great game, 348 yards passing, but Derrick Henry rushed for 92 yards on 15 carries. That's 6.1 yards per carry, 1 TD, long of 51. So the long helped. But let's just look at his season numbers here. This guy has 95 yards rushing right now for the year. 95 carries. I apologize. 95 carries. Second most in the league. For 572 yards. First in the league. 6 TDs. Tied for first in the league. He's averaging 6 yards a carry. Forget what you say. I know the long runs help him, guys. But here's the situation I'm going to tell you. He still has the ability to make those long runs, so he is still a valuable asset to the NFL teams. The deal is I love Derrick Henry, one of the greatest college players I've ever seen, one of the greatest high school players I've ever seen. And I just want people to know that the Titans made a huge mistake. They have no quarterback. They have no ability to pass, and they got rid of their best weapon for reasons unknown. But bottom line is Derrick Henry now holds this, the longest rush in Titans history and the longest rush in the Ravens history. And I think he's a stud. So we're about to get into some questions. I saw some questions about, do we think he has enough in the tank to break Emmitt Smith's record? No, I don't think he has that much in the tank. Do I think he has enough to get to 12, 13,000 yards? Yes. I mean, the dude's going to have a heck of a career. He's going to have one of the best careers ever, like a Walter Payton or Barry Sanders. Absolutely not. The dude's going to have a career, though. He's going to have a career that gets him into the Hall of Fame. And you know what? That's all you can ask out of your running back. That's all you can ask. I just think the Titans kind of sold on him a little too early. I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. And just for those that are wondering that say he doesn't have too much in the tank, Derrick Henry has the 4th fastest speed registered in the NFL this season on that long run. The 4th fastest speed registered on the field this season in the NFL. That's huge. This dude weighs 250 pounds. So big time game for Henry again. And I think he's doing great. And I hope he continues. To do great. So with that said, he has 10,074 career rushing yards. So, all right, we're going to get some Q&A. We're going to talk final thoughts, see what we all think about the game this weekend. So a couple of questions here. So looking at the chat, does Tennessee wait for Arch to declare, or do we go after Quinn? I'm going to say this. So I don't think the Titans throw their chips in on Levis yet. So with that said, I think this is the year that we don't do anything. I think we wait. We're going to give Levis the benefit of the doubt, try to build up around him. And at the end of the day, I think if he doesn't perform the rest of this year, and it doesn't look like we have any kind of forward momentum, I think we go after Arch after next year. Yeah, I would say Arch, man. Arch is the guy. I've seen some of the mock drafts saying we're going after Shedeur Sanders. We don't want Shedeur Sanders. Okay, we don't want him. He's putting up great numbers, guys. He is, but you don't ever see anybody that wide open in the NFL. You have to throw people open in the NFL. We don't want him. We need somebody like an Arch Manning who has the pedigree and has the training. When your uncles are Peyton and Eli, I mean, it's going to be great. But anyway, long story short, there, yeah, I don't think they go after Quinn this year. I think they do go and wait on Arch, because that guy's probably going to be generational, kind of like an Andrew Luck. So One of the questions was, how do we feel about Oregon and Penn State jumping UGA? We talked about it a little bit, but to just clarify, I don't think either of those teams are as good as Georgia. But they are undefeated, so let them have the benefit of the doubt. It'll all get sorted out in the end. Like I said, all of us have to play each other at some point. When I say that, it'll all get sorted out. The top 12 teams will be in the playoffs. I'm good. So UGA Texas game might put UGA out of it. That's a good point. I will tell you this. If Georgia finishes 10-2 with losses to Alabama and Texas, they're in. If they finish 10-2 and those are their only two losses, they're in. Now, here's the caveat. They lose those two games and they're still in the SEC title game, and then they lose a third game in the SEC title game. I don't think they make it. I don't think they make it at all. But all we can do and all we can hope for is the fact that, you know, we win out as a Bama fan. We win out, and then hopefully we'll have that same opportunity. How do we feel about title games? Like, how do we feel about the SEC title game? So if Alabama wins out, let's say, and they're 11-1, and then we get knocked out of the playoffs because maybe we get beat by Texas and we're 10-2 and we get knocked out. How do we feel about that? That would be terrible, right? Be terrible. I'm going to say this, Crimson came in here, says, you don't think you make it the SEC title game with two losses? I don't know. I got a feeling we're all going to beat the hell out of each other. Texas A&M does need to lose, but I watched Texas A&M play Notre Dame, and I'm just not quite sure they're the team that everyone thinks they are. They had a great game against Missouri. They did. They had a great game against Missouri. They matched up well. And you think about it, it's a big game for them. They won, and I'm proud of them for it. They deserve all the accolades they're getting. But we had a great first half against Georgia. We looked like we were an offensive juggernaut. Defense couldn't be stopped. Best defense in the land. And then we saw what happened this week against Vanderbilt. Sometimes it's about matchups. It's not about the team you're playing. That's a cop-out, honestly, but it is what it is, especially now. Yeah, I will say they've improved ever since. I'm gonna agree. They're trending upwards. So they're playing pretty well. But again, I it's still early. I still think we're gonna beat the hell out of each other. So just take that with a grain of salt. I think we're all gonna beat the hell out of each other. I don't think anybody but Texas escapes without two losses. So that's my opinion. I mean, we might. Tennessee might, but I don't know. The inconsistency that I've seen from all the teams in the SEC, including Georgia, including Texas A&M. I know one game's here, one game there, but it does. I mean, it can happen anytime. Yeah, now we know no SEC game is easy. After getting beat by Vanderbilt, we understand that there is not an easy SEC game left. And guys, this is not your average Vanderbilt team. That quarterback was phenomenal. Now, it doesn't take away from the fact that it's Vanderbilt, but that guy was phenomenal, and we got to give credit where credit was due. That guy played out of his mind. That guy won the game for Vanderbilt. Guys. He did. And here's the deal, Crimson. Like we say, UGA needs to beat Ole Miss. I'm just telling you, if we win out, let's say we don't get to the title game. If we're 11-1, we're going to the playoffs. So it doesn't matter. And I'm going to tell you, mark it down anywhere you want. Alabama, if finishes 10-2, they are going to the playoffs. If they finish the season 10-2, if they finish 10-3 because they lose in the title game, they're not going. But at 10-2, Alabama, with the schedule we play, will get to the playoffs. I believe that. I really do. I think that the pedigree and everything. Now the Vanderbilt loss hurts, and it's not going to be looked on favorably. But I think we make it. Okay, so Pavia looked like Prime Manziel. Yeah, 100%. We made him look like Prime Manziel, and he made us our bitch. Or he made us his bitch. Sorry. I hate being that vulgar, but that's what happened. That guy straight up looked at us and said, yeah, I own you. So, hopefully we do better. Moving forward. I mean, we got some talented teams on the schedule left, Sellers for South Carolina is a hell of a player. Rocket Sanders, we know him from his Arkansas days. He's going to be great. Believe it or not, South Carolina's defensive pass rush is probably the best we're going to see all season. So, Yeah, I agree. A&M has a chance to make the playoffs this year, and this is their easiest schedule. So if they don't do it this year, I'm not sure they do it. But A&M has played Texas too. You know what I'm saying? It's a big match, dude. So they, if you finish 10-2, let's say they have the one loss in the SEC to Texas, because I'm assuming Texas A&M gets beat by Texas. I'm assuming that, and they go back to the title game to play them again. I'm not sure they can beat them. And you're not getting in with 3 losses. So it's going to be a tough road for anybody. I mean, but there's possibilities. I think Georgia plays Ole Miss too, don't they? No, maybe Ole Miss misses them. I don't remember. All right, so what else we got going on today? Anything else? Well, here we go. We're going to wrap this up. We're going to try to have a day. So this is our first couple attempts. We're trying to do a podcast that's going to be called Lock, Loaded, and Goated. We're going to talk football. I'm a huge Alabama fan. I'm going to talk a lot about Alabama, and I'm going to give you the daily updates as I see them and kind of give you my opinions. Each weekend, we are going to try to have a panel review of the games from this weekend with a couple of Tennessee fans. We have a Georgia fan on the panel. We have another Alabama fan. So we're going to try to give you some really unbiased opinions. We are going to try to give you honest feedback on what we think is going on. We're not going to sugarcoat things, and we're not going to make it easy on these guys. We're going to hold them accountable. If the coaches don't do it, we're damn sure going to do it on this podcast. So with that said, I hope you guys will stick around. If you haven't liked, followed, and subscribed, please do. It's going to help us grow. We're trying to build this up. Like I said, we're tired of the what I'd like to call the soft podcast where everyone's like, it's okay. No, man, it's not okay. We live and die by our teams, and we want to see success. It's not always going to be success. We're not always going to win, and that's part of life, and we're going to learn that the hard way. But we're going to learn together, and we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about football. We're going to talk about the hard-hitting issues, and we're going to sit here, and we're going to hold these people accountable, even if it's just on this podcast. But that's what we're going to do. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for being part of it. Like I said, if you haven't liked, subscribed, followed, done all that good stuff, please do for me. This will be released on Apple, Spotify, and everything like that, so you can go back and listen to it if you want to. That said, I plan to be back on Thursday, and we will have a panel review, which we're going to call Lay in the Wood, which will be the hard-hitting action from the weekend on Saturday. So with that said,